why.
Why are you choosing to stay in this field? What's like the most impactful thing that you're trying to accomplish?
To stay in this field?
Mm-hmm.
Well, standing. I have a 5-year-old, and it's important to me what he sees from me as a dad. I think that's the biggest reason why I do what I'm doing. And as I move into the future, that's all that matters to me, is what type of example I set for him. I look back on my childhood and I don't downplay the examples I had. I think the overall goal of leadership is to advance ourselves, but you're not a leader unless you bring somebody with you. That's the way I perceive leadership, is you can't lead if there's nobody behind you. At that point, you're just flapping in the wind. You know, anything that's been accomplished in life, you look at like the history of America, is even, you say, okay, they built the railroads. Somebody had to build that first for someone to come behind them. Somebody had to say, oh, I'm going to hop on a boat and go see what's on the other side of the world. And no one told them what was there. So that's what a leader is I'm going to go see what's in this forest. I'm going to build a path for somebody to follow. That's leadership to me, is you don't know what's ahead of you. And you can't really decide who's following you, but you can build a path. And it's like, the perception, I thought about this probably a couple months ago, is you're coming down a mountain, right? And you see somebody crashes. The next person that comes behind them, they put up a yell sign, because you're learning from the person in front of you that crashed. So you're setting up a warning sign for the next person coming. And that's my perception of what we're doing now, is to say, I made a lot of mistakes as a young kid, and now I don't want you to make the same mistake, so I'm putting up a yell sign. That's my perception of what I'm doing today. Is like, do you want to crash? Or are you going to read the sign that I just posted for you? Or, you know, we're digging you out of a car that's burning tomorrow.
Clients are you trying to attract?
I don't think I'm looking for anybody specifically. I'm talking to the 14-year-old me that was making horrible mistakes that costed me a lot of emotions, time, energy, and I felt a lot of pain that wasn't necessary if I made better decisions or had better people that I was looking to.
Do you think if you didn't go through those trials and tribulations, you would be in this seat today?
No. That's why sometimes people ask me, if you could go back in time, would you make different decisions? It's hindsight 2020, where I would not want to experience the things I did, but to the point, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't experience those things. You have to live and learn, and I think it provides experience and wisdom to lay the blueprint for people following behind us.
What is one of the most impactful experiences that has led you to stepping into this journey?
Self-reflection and seeing the collateral damage from bad decision making. Like for me as a young kid, I blamed everybody around me. And once I started to look in the mirror and say, okay, my decision making has costed me my parents, hugging my mom locked up as a juvenile wasn't a good feeling. Burying my grandma in shackles wasn't a good feeling. As I was running through the neighborhood with a group of friends who were clapping for the things I was doing, it was an ego boost, like, oh, we're cool, we're doing stuff we shouldn't be doing. But when you see the consequences of those actions, I was the one who experienced the downfall. It wasn't a group of friends, it was me as an individual. And what that taught me over time was to say, okay, I can make bad decisions, I can make good decisions, but I'm the person who has to deal with it. I could either reap the consequences or I could reap the rewards of good decision making. So it taught me to be isolated, but it also built character within me to say, I don't care about what these people think of me. I do to an extent if I'm mentoring somebody, but you're always going to have judgment and perceptions of you made bad decisions, you're a troublemaker. And I carried that for a decade before I started making better decisions.
Who is your biggest, I don't know how to say it. Who is like your most inspiring person that you want to kind of follow?
I think it's been a mixture of everything. Someone asked me this question a while ago. I think everybody has great characteristics and everybody has flaws. So you can't put all your faith in one person. You can't put all your faith in one group of people because we're all human. We all make mistakes. We're all flawed to an extent. Nobody's Jesus, but I think everybody has something you can learn from, and everybody has something that maybe you can coach them through. You might be better at doctor stuff and might be better at accounting stuff, but if you're open-minded, you could learn something from me, I could learn something from you. If I have a group of people around me who are better at speaking, I need to be open-minded to step into that role and be coachable. But if I'm better at taxes, they have to be open-minded to say, okay, you know more about this trade than I do. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago with Brandon down in Tampa, and my analogy is if I want to learn to push a broom, I'm going to go find a janitor. If I want to learn to speak, I'm going to go find a group of people who speak. So you have to learn to follow before you can lead. You have to learn to work before you can be the boss. That's just what my experience has been. What do I hope to accomplish with all this? I think that's to be determined. I think the biggest goal is just to leave a legacy of something that I cared about more than myself at this point. I love my son to death. I think he's in the position where I hope he doesn't struggle the way I did as a kid. I want to be hands-on with him, coach him through life, and if I'm able to do that with other youth around me, then that's a win. And even if it's one person that I impact, that I can say, okay, you didn't get locked up in a youth detention facility, you're not running around with a gun, you're not out here selling drugs at a young age, you tell your parents how you feel because you don't have to bottle that emotions, because that's what I did. My parents had no idea half the stuff I was doing as a juvenile. And it was an intentional decision, two, it was survival. So it was a mixture of everything that I was going through. But if I could impact that young kid I was locked up with 200-300 kids at 14, and looking at them, going into that environment, I thought my life was horrible. And then I met people who didn't have parents, who didn't have nobody to inspire them, who didn't even have somebody to be like, hey, I'm coming for a visit. I had maybe 25 to 30 visits over a 20-month period, and I had a roommate who had 0 visits. So it taught me to put things in perspective. We're like, oh, I'm complaining about, oh, you only come see me twice a month. He had 0. So I used the analogy of the man with no shoes complained until he met the man with no feet. And that's exactly what taught me to be thankful for what I have.
If your son went through the hardest experiences that you endured in your childhood, how would you guide him to not go down that path respectfully and to follow what your example is?
I think being hands-on with him and taking the time to take a step back and invest in him from a time perspective. It wasn't that my parents didn't love me. They were just off providing, surviving. I think it's a different environment, the 80s and 90s versus the world we live in today, where technology is different. You can pick up a phone and FaceTime your kids. I didn't have that growing up. If I left the house, it was like, see you when I see you, and you couldn't call home, and it was just different environment. So I think to coach him through it is just to be hands-on, be invested in his education, and just let him know that it's an open street. If you have a problem, come talk to dad. If it's something you don't feel comfortable with talking to dad about, go to your mom. If you can't talk to either one of us, go to your grandparents, go to a peer, go to a colleague, go to an aunt. But don't bottle it in to the point where you let it build like a volcano and then it explodes the way I did. I think it's a threefold perspective. I think I have a lot of experience from a tax perspective, so I would love to help people from a business perspective, help them better their finances, map their life out from a 6-month, 1 month, 3-year, 5-year period. 2 is just lived experience. If I could share my story, and same thing, that stove's hot, don't touch it. You don't have to go down that path. Here's a yield sign. Don't speed, slow down, and take this curve lightly. 3rd is just trying to lead by example. Sometimes words can be impactful, but I think people see who you are from an action perspective versus a words. I think that holds more value. When I've been in rooms where words don't move me, but people's actions do. And you could say, okay, I see what this person's saying, but I see what they're doing means more to me. And over a time period, I think that creates a blueprint of people may gravitate towards you based on what you do versus what you say. I feel like I'm in alignment with God right now, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Why join the BTBY?
This was something that came up out of the blue. Brenda reached out, and love her to death. She told me she had seen me in Nashville, and she's like, I was just watching you walk around the room. I didn't realize she was watching me at the time, so it was a pat on the back, and she's like, you seem like the real deal. She's like, but you seem a little unapproachable. And so I took that into consideration. I was like, what? I am very reserved when I walk into a room. I'm quiet, I'm observant, looking around. And she told me what the team was doing, and I think the biggest thing I gravitated to was trying to reach the youth. I think that's where my inspiration and I think my passion lies, is just coming from that environment of kids struggling. So that's priority number 1, and then 2 is just being a part of like-minded leaders is something that I really enjoy, and people that are trying to build something in a blueprint for others. And I think your team all naturally does it from a point of passion and not from a point of ego and trying to make money. And I've been in those rooms, but I think this team cares about what we're building, and that means a lot to me.